people know the batting orders changed, so things are gonna get hot right now. Mr. Speaker, let me start with a definition. Kabuki is a form of classical theater in Japan known for its elaborate costumes and dynamic acting. But often it is sometimes used in political discourse to describe an event characterized by more showmanship than content. Mr. Speaker, if anyone knows about motion to adjourn, it's you and I. And there's never been any time in the last 2 years that the remaining six OBA MPs have all stayed behind for motion to adjourn. Today is the first time in 2 years. So we see, as Minister Rebane says, we see what the plan is. Mr. Speaker, y'all religious man, I take it. Take your mind back to Palm Sunday. What were they telling Jesus? They were telling Jesus, Hosanna, Hosanna. 5 days later, what them same people said? Hang him. So let's take our mind back to last week, on February 10th. They had the damn Minister of Finance in the paper. Oh, they spent $17,000 on a trip. Oh, what's he doing for all that? What he spent all that money for? Hang him. This is a waste of the taxpayers' money. 3 days later, oh, Hosanna, Hosanna, the king has left us. Let me remind people of something, right? When OBA MP Jeff Barron resigned, there was a vacancy in constituency 25. It was an OBA seat. MP Dickinson was picked as the candidate. MP Dickinson did not win that seat by himself. If you remember, Mr. Speaker, the entire PLP caucus was called out to canvass that seat. The entire PLP caucus walked up and down the hills of Ward, Belmont, Harbor Road, Morgan's Road, Henson Island, Spring Hill. I could go on and on because I know all those roads. My point is, Mr. Speaker, the reason we won that seat, the reason MP Dickinson became Minister Dickinson is because of a team effort. The same team effort why his financial policies over the last 39 months has been effective. A team effort. I'm not in cabinet, but when he told ministers, no, you can't get it, they didn't get it. Much to the consternation to some of our union partners. So suddenly, the same person they're saying Hosanna to, they want to hang for the last 39 months. It wasn't like the OBA just said, okay, we're not going to run a candidate in that seat because you got such a smart guy running. No, they ran against us and they ran a dirty campaign against us. So don't act like your friends, don't act like you're the friends with Minister Dickinson. Moving on, Mr. Speaker. Someone mentioned about a blacklist. I'm going to get into the racial connotations, but here's the facts, Mr. Speaker. The United Kingdom is the world's biggest place for money laundering, but they're not on the blacklist. The Caribbean islands have less than 1% of tax avoidance, but they're always on the blacklist. So ask yourself, why is it called the blacklist? Mr. Speaker, why are we in debt? We're in debt because we borrowed money to pay our civil servants, to pay our people. Our civil servants who pay rent, our civil servants who pay mortgage, our civil servants who buy groceries, our civil servants who buy insurance. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? They talk about, oh, the government hasn't controlled the debt. The government hasn't controlled the cost of living. So there's two questions. Do they want us to fire their civil servants? Because that's the only way we're going to cut our debt. Ask them that. Do they want us to fire our civil servants? Because they know that won't work, because then their civil servants won't be able to buy groceries, they won't be able to afford insurance, they won't be able to buy cars, and they won't be able to buy milk. They don't want that. That's another thing, Mr. Speaker. They keep talking about the cost of living. But when has the OBA ever talked about the unfair profits that these companies are making? They have yet to say the obscene profits that some people are making in insurance. Why? Because the shareholders, the major shareholders of the same insurance companies. I'll be like MP Zandy Silver. I'm going to wait for a point of order. Do I hear it? No. Because they know they are making profits. They are contributing to the cost of living in this country. Mr. Speaker, the word hypocrisy has been used a lot. So let's use this word. How is it, hypothetically, Mr. Speaker, that somebody could owe the government $300,000 in unpaid taxes? Unpaid taxes and unpaid health insurance. But yet, a specific political party would let them run as a candidate. How is that, Mr. Speaker? No, I'm not referring to other recent situations. But if you're going to talk about somebody who has $15,000, let's talk about that guy who has $300,000 to the taxpayers of Bermuda. But yet he could still be a candidate for a certain party. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about transparency. They want to know why the finance minister quit or resigned. But the same people say, why did he resign? They're the same ones who said that they was going to give a report about why somebody else was forced to resign. Well, yet to see that report. I'll read again for point of order. Sorry, can't hear it. Mr. Speaker, just imagine that these people are praising the minister and they were condemning him for the last 4 years. Apart from now and then they might say something nice, but for the most part, they were condemning him and saying the government has no financial plan. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to move on. You know this area called Rocky Lane? Yeah. There's a family that lives midway up the way. I think you may know them, maybe not. The Burgesses. There's almost, they have this church called Burgess AME. Sorry, Bethel AME Church. But anyway, the patriarch of that family is named Mr. Norris Burgess. And yesterday I saw his son, Norris Jr. And he gave me some of his father's wisdom. And I asked him, can I quote your father in Parliament tomorrow? And he says, go right ahead. So I'm asking you, Mr. Speaker, can I quote Mr. Burgess in Parliament? Most certainly. He had a saying, Norris Jr. said that Norris Sr. said he used to sit his children on in threes and tell them, we're building this house, don't worry about how long it takes, because each course that we build is one course closer to the top. Let me repeat that. One course closer to the top. Mr. Speaker, I've read all sorts of comments in social media. I've heard all sorts of comments on people you wouldn't expect. Oh, the sky is falling in. Oh, the ship is sinking. All these negative comments on the radio and shows. Mr. Speaker, if I didn't know better, we would think that Armageddon's about to reach us. That COVID's come back again in a worse form. Yet no one talks about the progress that this government has made, Mr. Speaker. No one talks about the work that Minister Tanae Ferret does for the seniors and the children and the differently able people of this country. That doesn't seem to be a big catch headlines. That doesn't seem to be talked about in churches on Sundays, Mr. Speaker. No one talks about work that Minister Scott has done to bring electric buses to this country. The first country in the Caribbean to have electric buses, Mr. Speaker. No one talks about the work that Honorable Minister Walter Rabban does to save our environment. No one. That doesn't seem to catch the headlines. No one talks about the work that the AG does to reform legal reform, as evidenced today with these no-fault divorces. No one talks about that. That never makes the headline. That doesn't make the talk show runs. No one talks about the work that Minister Jason Hayward did to make sure that $70 million went into the pockets of our people during the pandemic. Because if they didn't get it, guess what? They wouldn't have been able to pay rent. They wouldn't have been able to pay mortgage. And let's talk about the economic collapse had that happened. No one talks about all the work that MP Keynes and Senator Lindsay does in Parish Pride, getting young people out every weekend, help clean up this country, and giving them a sense of working together with other people. You see, Mr. Speaker, one course closer to the top. All of what we've been doing for the last 4 to 5 years, what you've been doing since 1998, are building blocks for a better Bermuda. Yes, no one wants to be in debt, but do we have a choice? Do we tell our civil servants, listen, we got less tax tourists coming in, so listen, you're gonna have to take a 20% cut, bro. That's not gonna go down well, even if it made fiscal sense. Mr. Speaker, let me say this, sir. I say to those that sit in the front benches, soldier on. We may disagree at times, but soldier on.
Yeah, right.
To those in the back benches, continue to challenge those in the front benches. And most importantly, continue to tell the story of what this government is doing for the people of this island. Because it was up to the Royal Gazette, the OBA, and certain talk show hosts, they would tell us that they will have us painted as if we're the worst people in the world. Mr. Speaker, for those who say the PLP backbench don't speak up, they don't know the PLP backbench. And you can attest to that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to quote Reverend Tweed if possible. Is that okay with you?
Most certainly.
All right, I'm just going to play a recording. That's okay with you?
Yeah, go ahead.
And so, and I'll end just by saying this, the same way that the BUT and our teachers have my full support. The current premier has my full support. He has my full support. So don't allow misrepresentations in a paper that we ought not even read or trust to shape a narrative for you. Don't allow that. We can have our own conversation and we can mend and fix our own relationships. That's our responsibility. That's our obligation to our people, to the people that we serve. It's our people that suffer.
That's it, Mr. Speaker. As the great Reverend said, don't allow others to shape our narrative of each other. We are going to have, there's no way you're going to have 30 of Aunt Hagen's children in one room and they agree on what type of chicken. They're not. Some want barbecue, some want fried, and some just want it not cooked. That's our nature, Mr. Speaker. And I'm saying to my people, I don't care if you're black, white, Somerset, if you're Somerset, I don't know. Well, you know what I mean, Mr. Speaker. The point I'm getting at, don't allow these charlatans, these kabuki spiata people to shape the narrative of what this government, your government, that you voted in twice over the last 5 years to form. Because they didn't show up tonight because they loved Minister Dickinson. They showed up to try to take advantage of public sentiment. Mr. Speaker, I'm gonna air my coat like how I started. Mr. Norris Burgess, one step closer to the top. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP. Famous.